Okay. Okay, so everybody joining online from wherever you're joining, you're welcome to the Edge Circle. Um, we're sorry for a bit of logistical issue that has occurred, but we'll pick it up, we'll continue from here. While Naren gets his whatever
Whatever
together, we will
together, we
just
will just
continue.
continue.
And I hope you
And
can
I
hear me
hope you can hear
clearly.
me
A
clearly.
message in the chat will be appreciated, or a thumbs up, or a like, or something. Okay. So
Fine.
today we are going to be talking about pressure, right? Pressure. Um, I think this is something we are very familiar with, and it's something that at some point or the other, every individual on this call or streaming this live has experienced. All right. So the issue is not the pressure. The most pertinent thing is usually how do you handle the pressure. Okay. And in the next few minutes, we will try not to take so much of your time. We will be very apt and very concise with what we are going to share. In the next few minutes, myself and Noreen will share a few things that from our own experiences on how you can deal with pressure and how you can handle the pressure. Okay. Um, I want to be sure we can hear me clearly. A message in the chat will be appreciated. Thank you so very much. Okay, okay. A mic check, Noreen. Can you check
I
your
can hear you,
microphone
but
on?
can you hear me?
Uh, Nothing yet. Okay, so I'll just go ahead while he fixes his microphone. Okay. Um, so where would I start from this? So usually, more often than not, we find a situation where people break under pressure, right? And more often than not, this pressure comes from in the modern time, it comes from work, from where you work. This pressure comes from maybe you're in school, it comes from academia. Sometimes the pressure comes from family, or the pressure comes from society. So pressure comes in different shapes or form. And I can't talk about all the kinds of pressure that comes to us, especially as young adults. And I believe that the audience I am speaking to this evening, the majority of the people are young adults. So I can't speak about the various forms and ways in which pressure comes because we won't live here if I do that. However, I will talk generally as to how to handle pressure. So if I'm sharing an example of pressure from work, be very sure that how I am going to describe how to handle that will cut across other spheres of life. Okay, I hope that's clear. So I have some points I will just speak about very quickly. So first thing is, why do people break under pressure? Usually, it's that people neglect the small overloads that have been happening over a period of time. Okay, so it's not pressure doesn't happen at once, or the effect of mountain pressure doesn't take effect at once. Usually it's as a result of neglecting small overloads that have occurred over a period of time. It could be at your workplace, it could be in school, it could be anywhere. So if you do this, you will break because you have neglected small overloads. Number two, because of this overloads that have happened over a period of time, you have not released the pressure. All right, you have not released the pressure. And if you have not released this pressure by putting structure and by recalibrating and all of that, you are going to break under pressure. And that leads to the third point. Number three is no recalibration. Recalibration here is the most common thing that people use that is maybe synonymous to recalibration is what we call a retreat. You do not take time to retreat. And when you hear a retreat, what does that mean? If you have seen medieval movies and you have seen war movies, when you hear that the army wants to retreat, what's the purpose of the retreat? Usually the purpose of a retreat is that people go back and re-strategize as to how to win a battle. More often than not, you don't retreat from a battle you're winning, right? You retreat from a battle you're losing or you're at the verge of losing. If you're winning a battle, If there is a saying that say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So if you're winning a battle, you're not retreating. But if you're losing a battle, you're retreating and you're trying to re-strategize and recalibrate as to what you could do better or what you're not doing well enough so that you can do better in your
do better
battle.
in your
So
battle. So
it's
it's
because you're
because
losing
you're
that you want to
losing
recalibrate.
that you
So
want to
when there, so
recalibrate.
it's
So
like
it's like
there are small overloads over a period
there are
of time.
small
There is no
overloads over a
release and
period
there
of
is
time.
no
There is no release and
recalibration.
there is
All
no
right. And
recalibration.
what
All
this
right.
leads
And what
to,
this
what those
leads
three
to,
things that
what
I've
those three
mentioned
things that
above
I've
leads to
mentioned above
is
leads to
that it
is
leads
that it
to
leads to
poor quality of a lot
poor
of things.
quality of a
And
lot
one
of
of them
things.
is that
And
it
one of
leads to poor decision quality, right? If you allow pressure over a period of time and you do not deal with it, you start to make decisions poorly. It could be at work, it could be in school, it could be in career, it could be in whatever. You start to make poor decisions. Number two, it could also lead to emotional instability. Means that because over a period of time you have been overwhelmed with a lot of things, you are not stable emotionally. It means that you get irrational quickly, you get angry over things that you should not be angry about. The way I put it is that you become very sinusoidal, right? If you did some mathematics here, you know when the graph of a sine is drawn, it's like it's up and down. So you have very high highs and very low lows. You don't have a steady um you don't have a steady energy, if that's the word people use. So you are very sinusoidal, you are emotionally unstable when you have allowed pressure over a period of time. And number three is that it tells on your physical health. Okay, it tells on your physical health. And if you combine these three things, if you're making poor decisions, and you're not stable emotionally, and then you have your physical health is deteriorating, it's only a matter of time before you reach the die of your career or of your life. So pressure it has long-term effects, and these are some of the things I've mentioned and I've listed here. So I'm not going to stay so much on the pressure because I know that quite a number of people are already experiencing pressure in whatever way or form. My point or the purpose of my conversation with us this evening is, or this morning, with respect to wherever you're joining from, is how do you deal with the pressure? So I'm going to be talking about something called the pause principle. All right, the pause, like PAUSE. One of the things you want to do first is to pause. All right, is to pause. And literally, I mean pause. Like stop whatever it is you are doing and take a step back. You want to pause. Because if you don't do that and you carry on doing what you're doing, chances are that you wouldn't get better result, and you wouldn't get better results, and you will still fail at whatever it is you're doing. So you have to pause. And when you are in that state of pause, you want to when you're in the state of pause, you want to take cognizance of these things, right? So number one is, so this pause I am speaking about here is an acronym for something, right? So number one is pressure awareness, right? P stands for pressure awareness. um you can take some notes. A stands for assessment. U stands for unload intentionally. S stands for strategic response. Okay. And E stands for environment check or environmental check. So I'll go over that again so that we get what I'm trying to say. So I said P stands for pressure awareness. A stands for assessment. U stands for unload intentionally. S stands for strategic response. E stands for environment check. So before I go ahead and talk about how this can help you deal with pressure, I should say this. While it might seem like pressure is all bad, I am a firm believer that the best of most people is not going to be seen until they are placed under an immense amount of pressure. I believe that a lot of people have seen diamonds before, and diamonds are very They're a huge collectible. They are very expensive, and diamonds are made over a period of time because immense pressure is applied upon carbon. All right. And we know today that artificial diamonds are made. And if you have ever seen how the process of artificial diamonds are made, it's usually that carbon dust or carbon elements, or whichever way they get the carbon, or asphalt or whatever it is placed under undue immense pressure. And that's where carbon comes from. So you must not look at pressure only from a negative angle. You must look at it as something that can get the very best out of it. So if you're going through immense pressure, you can channel that pressure into getting the very best out of you. So I'm a firm believer is the best of you is not seen until you're under some level of pressure. Right? I believe that people are not their ultimate best when they're working from their comfort zone, or they're working or they're doing things in their comfort zone. So it means that you have to get out of your comfort zone, and getting out of a comfort zone might sometimes require that you're put under certain pressure. All right. So if you remember clearly, what did I say about pause? Pressure awareness assessment, unload strategically, unload intentionally, strategic response, and environment check. So first thing is you must be aware of the fact that there is some sort of pressure around you. I can give multiple examples of how I've been under pressure, maybe most especially at work. I have worked with some quite top organizations. I remember I think about 4 years ago now? About 4 years ago, or late 3 years ago, I was working with Amazon, and there was immense pressure in my first 2 months to deliver on certain things. But I couldn't deliver at that time because at the same time where the company was expecting deployment and certain things in delivery, I was also writing exams in school. All right. And those were my first exams. So it was quite challenging managing the two together. However, once the exams were done and I had like time to get my hands on, I was able to I'm not going to go into details about what I did. It has a lot to do with data and engineering. But here, my point is that I knew there was pressure from work. I recognized it, and I also knew how to address it. All right. I know I'm jumping a little bit, but I had an awareness where there was pressure, because also I had like one-on-ones with my manager, and it was very clear on my position at that time. And I did not for once think that I was going to lose the job. I was not worried about losing the job because I knew that I could channel whatever was going on to my own benefit. And I did. And I did, such that I think 3 months or 4 months later, I was awarded Employee of the Month in Amazon in the country I stay in. And trust me, the number of staff in that organization is huge. So it's not like I had Employee of the Month with two other people in the organization. Okay, so you must be aware of the pressure. You must know where the pressure is coming from. You must know what is causing you to be under pressure. Number two, you must be very objective in your assessment. All right, objectivity in your assessment is very important. You cannot allow yourself to be subjective. And you know what objectivity does for you is that you can tell yourself the truth. If you're subjective in what is causing you pressure, you might be putting blame on things that you shouldn't be putting blame on. Usually, I would always tell people, more often than not, look within, take responsibility, look within yourself and take responsibility. So when you're able to assess properly, I'm not saying you every time the pressure you are at fault for whatever is putting you under pressure, but you must be able to objectively assess the situation. You might have to go into retrospection and look at that. Once you have that, then number three, you want to unload intentionally, right? When you're under pressure, unloading intentionally here means a you have a plan. Okay, you have a plan as to how to get yourself off of the pressure that you're under. And this plan could vary. It could be that you are going to deliver on a very major project at work. It might be like your output level is going to increase crazily. It might be in different shapes or forms. And that leads to the next point, that you give a strategic response. So for me, excuse me, in the Amazon example I was given earlier, I know when the situation happened. I mean, I think I was managing pipelines where I had to manage I had to manage multiple dashboards. And I know that when I had this one-on-one, eventually I was saddled with very huge responsibilities, and I over delivered. Okay, that was my strategic response. So there was a major task that was meant to be done. One thing I did was, the task was meant to take me like a couple of months. I delivered excellently on that task in 1 month. Okay, that was my strategic response after I had gone through a process of I was aware that there was pressure. I had done like a thorough assessment, and I had planned how to unload on this pressure. The last thing I'll talk about in this point is that you must also be aware of your environment. There are some environment that put you under pressure without you knowing. It means that your environment where comparison is a huge thing, where you just find yourself in a place where people are comparing themselves with one another. You're putting that is a source of undue pressure. If you find yourself in such environment, it's good to detach yourself. So you want to check your environment. If you find that your circle of friends, the major things you guys talk about every time is comparing finances with one another and all of that, you want to detach yourself from such a group, from a group that causes you to put yourself under undue pressure. All right. So I hope you get all of those 5 points. So remember, before I started making this 5 point, I said pausing is not a weakness. All right. I said pause. You must know when to pause. Right. Knowing when to pause really means that when a lot is going on, you must know when to take a break, right? A break here doesn't mean that you stop whatever it is you're doing. A break doesn't mean that you stop what it is you're doing. It doesn't mean that you quit. All right. You shouldn't quit on a lot of things under pressure, because if you quit under pressure, you are most likely not making the best decision. All right. So you must know when to pause. Pausing means that you're taking a step back and re you are doing a reassessment of the situation, right? So pausing is not a weakness, right? You must understand that the fact that you pause is not a weakness. You're not stopping, you're only recalibrating, you're not avoiding, you're choosing how and when to fight your battles. You're not delaying, you're deciding better. And the last point I will make is the advantage of people who are able to work and handle pressure. People who are able to manage pressure live differently. Number one thing that happens to you is you are able to think clearly, like you have clearer thinking. Number two, you're able to sustain better relationships. Number three, you have more consistent energy. I spoke about something like that earlier. You're able to think clearly. I spoke about how if you are under pressure a lot, you are very sinusoidal, right? You have a lot of highs, you have a lot of lows, you don't have a base level. But if you're able to manage your pressure, people are able to manage your pressure, they're able to think clearly. Every time they're able to make the right decisions, they have better relationship. Because you don't have high highs and low lows, you're not in relationships with people. And now I'm not necessarily talking about a romantic relationship, I'm talking about relationships with people generally. And not in relationships with people, and you are allowing the health of your relationship be judged by your mood and your emotions. It means you just have such a base level where you're fine with people. You don't have like unrealistic expectations of people. You are fine when people make mistakes. You're not going all about and being judgmental, things like that. And you have more consistent energy. If you are able to sustain a consistent energy over a period of time, it affects your productivity. Your productivity increases, and if your productivity increases, of course, you see results in your life over a long period of time. I am a firm believer that you would rather do something, maybe you're working on something, or you're developing yourself in a regard. You would rather do something 30 minutes per day or 20 minutes per day than try to do 5 hours per month. All right. trying to do 5 hours a month, because consistency over a period of time will help you. So I hope you got one or two things from what I have said. Um in a short while, Nurain will share a couple of slides with us, and he will pick it up from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Steven. Can you hear me?
Mic check,
Mic check,
Nurain.
Nurain.
Still can't hear me, right?
We still
We
cannot
still
hear you.
cannot hear you.
I don't
Awesome.
know if you can
I
hear
don't know
me.
if
If
you
you can
can
hear
hear
me,
me. If
can
you
I
can
get
hear
a
me,
thumbs
can I
up?
get a thumbs up?
I can hear you.
Okay, but I
Okay,
can't hear
but
you.
I can't hear you.
Let me check
Let
if
me
it's my
check if
audio.
it's my
But
audio.
my
But
audio is
my
good, I
audio is
think.
good, I think.
Mm,
Okay.
Okay.
Can we hear
Can we hear
Nurain?
Nurain?
Because I want to be
Because I
sure
want
it's
to be
not
sure
just
it's not
from
just
my
from my
end.
end.
Okay, what about now? Am I audible? Still no audio. Awesome. This is I'm audible. Ah, I see. Okay, I see your thumbs up, Steven. Awesome, awesome, awesome. This has given me some some weird issues. I'm gonna add a slide to the discussion and then share from there. First off, thank you, Steven, for what you've. I really enjoy the pause framework you mentioned. I think that's a very it's easy to remember. It's very related to the topic of discussion, and I think people would get a lot of value from that. So let me quickly share my screen, and I am going to put this in. Looking for a good format to make this. Let me know if this is clear and you can see it, Steven. If you can see it, then I think okay, awesome. People on the live stream, please do drop some comments if you can see this clearly. Okay, so how to master pressure. Stephen has given us a background of what it means to even be under pressure, like how why people break under pressure, like when you've not resolved all the things that that trigger you to be in that position in the first place. I'm going to try and wrap this up in a way that is concise and can serve as a summary to what he has discussed. Okay, so I wanted to share this at the beginning of the webinar, but some network issues, some platform issues went away. Let's see. If you are joining from a different country other than Nigeria and based in Lagos, please please say where you're from, and I'll be happy to check that out. What did you hear about the webinar as well? That'll be helpful to hear that as well. To the topic of discussion. Now, I'm going to say this first of all. We've all been there under pressure. Pressure is something that everybody has experienced in a way. Maybe you are giving a speech, could be planned, could be impromptu, right? Or you're walking up to a pretty girl and then you see that maybe you froze, or you're about to make a life-changing decision. Maybe you are presenting a very important PowerPoint to an audience, or you're speaking to them, and then some form of pressure comes to you. You're writing an exam. It could be a competitive exam, or an exam that decides if you get a first class, or a 2-1, or a 2-2, those kind of things. Those nuances where you just see that you're under unnecessary pressure, right? Or maybe you're trying to break a world record. For example, with Abasi's session, there was a lot of pressure on her. She was streaming live and everybody could see her. That's a lot of pressure on you, a lot of spotlight. Okay. So these are the things that causes you to be that might show that you're under pressure. Now, from these examples I've given, you notice that some of these pressure filled situations are immediate kind of pressure. Like they need you to pivot sometime in a way that shows real time. Some are more long term. For example, this is long term. We're about to make a decision that will pivot your career. That's a long term decision, right? And if you're writing an exam, that's an immediate, pressure of your situation that you need to resolve. Now, the way this happens is that scientifically, pressure is defined as a force that spreads over a particular surface of area, right? Now, imagine that you're trying to hammer a nail into a wall. Now, the reason why that pressure feels really big on the hammer, I mean on the nail rather, as you're trying to drive the hammer to the nail to the wall, is that nail has a sharp point, right? The surface area where it embodies at that point is very minute. That means the amount of pressure you're exerting on it will drive it into the wall easily. Now think for a second that nail itself doesn't have a sharp point, and it's just like a block. You are that nail in this instance actually. If you're listening to this, if now as you drive the hammer to the nail through the wall, if that nail is not sharp pointed, if you don't have sharp edges, I'll call it. I like to call these things, edges that make you unstable in a way. If you don't have this kind of edges, it won't be easy to drive it through the wall, right? So it means, in a way, for you to understand the forces that are exerted on you when you're under pressure, you need to be calm and centered in that place that you are, and tune out all the external noise that want to make sure that this armor of pressure drives you to the wall. Now, the goal to mastering pressure itself is to, first of all, try to avoid being under pressure. I'm going to explain this in the sense that when you understand the factors, these kind of situations that, as Stephen was describing, the environment, the things in the environment that triggers you to act irrationally when you're under pressure, then you can handle it. But even if you've mastered this, right, and you know the things that tend to tip you to be under pressure, no matter how prepared you are, sometimes you might still find yourself sweating, right? By sweating, I mean, being as if feeling as if things are not going according to plan. Now, what you do is, what happens when you're under pressure is that your brain starts getting really confused, right? There's a lot of jumble thoughts in your head, and you're worried about this, you're worried about that. As you're thinking about your input, you're thinking about the output you're giving. So there's a lot of confusion going on in your brain. Then what happens after that is you lose control. Your hand won't do what you want it to do because you're under pressure. Your words would not come out the way you want them to come out. So you won't be. Sometimes you might see that you're over sweating. Some people freeze in this kind of situations. And then what happens after this is that you make a lot of mistakes that you naturally not make, and that's not ideal. So what do you do? That's the next question. What do you do about all these things that tend to want to keep you in that pressure filled situation? What you do is you get back in control. I'm going to explain how to do this in due time. Because you've missed the road, right? Because you've taken the wrong path does not mean that you cannot get out, even if it's a long-term decision that you have to make, or it's an immediate pivot that you have to make. You can get out. You are not a tree. You don't have to stand there and go down that path of after you've lost all control and keep going down that path. You can get out. You can flip that situation to your advantage. Just wanted to let you know that's because you feel like you are at a point where things are not going as you planned in that instance does not mean that things have to end that way. Okay. Now, this I like to call this framework the do say slow kill. We're going to pair it with Steven's pause framework. In a way, we are pointing to similar, I would say similar ways to harness pressure and turn it into something that can really work for you. As I said, people don't really get the best out of themselves when they are not under some form of pressure. For example, the diamond example you gave, it needs to be under immense pressure, intense pressure, before it becomes, that diamond that you're saying. And sometimes some things break under pressure. So it's really trying to find out, that balance between the amount of pressure you can take by understanding yourself and the level of inputs or preparation that you can do. I call this framework the do say slow kill framework. It's easy to remember. Do your homework. It's that simple in the first instance. You need to do your homework. You see soldiers, these people, even police, right? They do their homework. They do lots of practice. They rehearse and they put in the rep. What do you think they are doing? They want to ensure that even if, like, no matter the circumstance, they are going to perform under any form of circumstance. That is, they practice to the point where it becomes muscle memory for them, because like they just know the next step that they're supposed to take, whatever the circumstance. So doing your homework in that way prepares you to be under pressure. Now, this is I'll say pre-situation kind of thing. This is not something you do when you are under that pressure. You have to prepare for it before you know that you are going to be under pressure. Okay. So when you've done your homework, you've covered all your bases. I mean, as I was saying earlier, even after you've done this, sometimes you might still find out, okay, you're feeling a bit jittery. The way you do in that instance is also similar to what Stephen has said is, you say it, you acknowledge that you're under pressure. There's a thing about your mouth and your ear. There's a relationship there. When you say something out loud and your ear hears it, your brain understands what is happening. That means you've acknowledged that, okay, this is the situation, then what do I do after this? When you've acknowledged this, you can apply this in that instance. For example, when you're giving a speech, right, and you're in front of an audience, and then you see that maybe that pressure is coming to you, you could say something like, this is the biggest crowd I've spoken to this year. In a way, it gives you that confirmation that you you are doing things that you thought was impossible in the first place, right? This is largest crowd you've spoken to this year. Yet that doesn't mean that you can't perform there, right? It tells your brain that, and then you can calm your nerves. Then this directly goes into the next stage, which is slow down. When we are under intense pressure, we tend to want to quickly wrap up what we are doing because we feel like we are doing nonsense. It happens to the best of us. Now, in this instance, what you do is, whatever kind of pressure you're facing, it could be an immediate pressure or a long-term pressure, right? Slow down, pause, as Stephen said, take a break, right? Could be walking down, in a garden or a park, control your breathing. So when you do this, it helps your body system to calm down and really recalibrate the next thing, the next line of action that you're supposed to take, right? If it's a long-term decision, delay the decision for a little bit. One extra day won't kill that decision that you have to make. One extra day won't make you make the worst decision in life. Okay, slow down, control how you breathe, and see how you get back into your rhythm. Now, the last part of this is to kill the performance. Kill it. You've prepared for this, right? You've put in the work, put in the rep, perform as you practiced in a way, because what happens here is that this middle stage where you acknowledge the pressure, and then when you slow down, it helps you to revert to your I would say to the state where you can control your emotions, you can control your motor functions, and you can be able to, when you want your arm to move in a way, it moves in that way. That's the whole point. Now, we can live test this 4-step framework. I would like somebody to tell me a situation where we're under pressure in the comment section, and then we can do a bit of example. Can anybody see the comment section? Stephen, can you see? Because I'm sharing screen, I can't really see.
The
The
comment section is
comment
not
section is not.
It's not showing from your end as well. Okay. Okay. Stephen, should we do an example here, just so it's clearer to the folks listening to us? I'm actually looking for a very something I'm not thinking about and looking for. Maybe you give me an example.
First, I
First,
think
I think
I'm getting a
I'm
feedback
getting a feedback
of
of
myself.
myself.
Aha, probably the platform.
So
Okay.
So
yeah, I
yeah,
don't think
I
we
don't
can
think we
talk
can talk
simultaneously.
simultaneously.
Okay. Well, we are almost out of time. It's 15 minutes to go, so I'm going to try to. Um, Let me see. Maybe we'll come back to that. It could be another form of discussion. What I want us to remember here is that whenever you're doing something that matters to you or to your to your purpose in life, you might see that you're feeling a bit of pressure, and this pressure can manifest in different ways. You can sometimes in a combination of ways, or it can come in just one way. It can manifest as fear, as you hesitating to do something that you know you're supposed to do. Right? It can manifest as you procrastinating. It can it can manifest as freezing when you know that you're supposed to move, or even just sweating. So all these things, when you notice that all of these things are coming to you, when you notice that you're having an unnecessary amount of fear, and you notice that you are hesitating too much, you notice that this procrastination that I'm procrastinating, I'm not supposed to be doing it, right? Or you freeze. That's the time you need to start applying the pause framework that Stephen has mentioned and this do say slow kill framework. Both of them can be applied in a way that I'll say to life situations regarding it could be something that is currently happening to you, something that you wanted to do long term. I just wanted to point out that if you found today's session valuable so far, please subscribe to the channel or request to join the Edge Circle. I'm gonna drop this in the comment section soon. Thank you. I really love this to be some form of interactive session. I can see people, you know, viewing. I can really see questions in the comments. Let's give that a bit of time. Now, if you're wondering what the Edge Circle is, as I've shared on the screen here, it's a leadership, development, and growth community. We are. This is one of our master classes, to like to call it, where we discuss important things that affect people for people that want to be leaders, system builders, that want to lead impact related initiatives. Sometimes these initiatives tend to be overwhelming and you find that you don't have all the bandwidth to do all the things that you want to do. Sometimes what this just means is that you might need support, from mentors, from people in your life, in your community. We offer that at the Edge Circle. This is one of our live sessions where we discuss pressure is one of the things that really affects people from actualizing their potential. I could go ahead and ask you, Stephen, what do you think are other things that people tend to experience when they are trying to manage pressure? I'm gonna go on mute now. So this is so we don't clash, I think.
Okay. So what other people experience when they are trying to manage pressure? I was going to say this. You must not think like usually when there is pressure, there is almost always a tendency for failure, right? You must never see failure as yourself. You must never see yourself as failure. Failure is an event, right? It's an event that you must not, what's the word? You must not attribute to yourself. And when you are in pressured situation, you must not attribute your inability to deliver at that particular point as your default state. Because, like Naren said, if you're prepared, you will deliver. So, if you find yourself in a situation where you have not delivered, don't let that become your default state, right? Be very wise to separate that situation in isolation as opposed to who you are originally, right? And the reason why I use failure is usually people, when they experience some form of setback or some form of failure in whatever they are doing, more often than not, they start to think of themselves as failures. They start to think of themselves as the failure. You're not the failure. You're not maybe you didn't perform excellently because of the fact that you were doing something under pressure and you couldn't manage the pressure. You are not that thing. Now that you have learned better about how to manage pressure, you can implement some of these things that myself and Noreen have shared, and then you will see better results. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, thanks for that statement. Thanks for that. I think, yeah, like you said, it's really important to to be grounded in yourself, and yeah, like you said, failure is an event. It's not you. When I think about situations where personally where I've been under pressure, what I've noticed is that I worry, maybe I worry too much about how I'll look to the outside world, or I worry too much about what will people perceive of me after this. But when you excuse yourself of all these expectations, and when you've done your homework, right, you've prepared, you have all the habits, you have a system that you follow. Athletes, I mean, for example, when I remember when using Bolt was he one of the Olympic races, he slipped, right? He slipped, but he still won. That's the like in that instance, that's something that could have tricked him into believing that, oh, this is not my ideal start, right? This is not how I would want to start a race. But then he went ahead, although he didn't win with the amount of margin that that you usually win, but still won. Even if he had come second or third, I would still think that coming from that, I would say from that situation where he was under an intense amount of pressure, coming back from that to dominate the race, that's something that requires an applause in itself. So, and it requires an amount of confidence that most people tend to not ascribe to themselves. Like we always think about the negatives. We don't think about how confident we are in the first place. Because if you are confident in your abilities, in what you can do, and the confidence in the system that you put in place, then maybe all these other external things that happen are just circumstances that you can jump over and then go ahead and do the things that you want to do in life. Stephen, I'd like to ask you, what would you want to leave? What would you want to leave the audience with as we end this discussion about pressure, mastering it, and listening to our advantage?
Okay, okay.
Okay, okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. What I want to leave everyone that has listened so far, I want to appreciate you for joining and staying so far. What I want to leave you with is that how you respond to pressure is usually the most important thing. How you respond, your response to it is usually the most important. Are you going to channel it and make the very best out of it, or are you going to allow it to crush you? Pressure can crush you, but pressure can also be that moment that the best version of you comes forth. So how you respond to the pressure that you're experiencing or you've experienced is what matters. So look at yourself in the mirror, objectively assess where you are, objectively assess what you're going through, tell yourself this is how I'm going to respond to it, and you would be shocked that that situation that is largely one that you fear was going to doom, you would see that you come out of it in flying colors. Yeah, that's what I'll leave with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I think that's a good way to end the session. Once again, I'd like to appreciate everyone that joined this webinar. I think it was very informative, even for me. Uh, with the pause framework, Stephen. So this has been a learning session for me as well, and I hope it has been a learning session for you, listeners, viewers at home, wherever you're joining from. And I would like to also appreciate that we had a diverse, I'll say kind of audience, at least that showed interest in the earlier parts of we preparing for this webinar. I'd like to appreciate other people behind the scenes that have put a lot of effort into making this a reality. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you so much, Steven, for your time. And yeah, without further ado, I'd like to say take care, everyone, and have a pressure free, a kind of life that you can harness the amount of pressure that come your way. Bye, everyone.